The USB drive fell out of Dr. Harrison's coat pocket as he rushed through the lobby at midnight, too distracted by his phone call to notice. Maria Santos picked it up, planning to return it the next morning. When curiosity got the better of her and she plugged it into her computer, she discovered documents that proved the government had been lying about everything for decades. Maria Santos had worked the graveyard shift at Meridian Research Facility for 3 years, content with the quiet anonymity of night security work. At 42, after losing her data analyst job to corporate downsizing, she'd learned to appreciate work that paid the bills without demanding much interaction. The Arlington, Virginia facility was supposedly a government agricultural research center, boring, bureaucratic, and exactly the kind of place where nothing exciting ever happened. Dr. Richard Harrison was one of the few people she saw regularly, a nervous man who often worked late into the night, muttering about crop yields and soil studies. That Tuesday night in October, Dr. Harrison rushed through the lobby at 11:47 p.m. in obvious panic. "Maria, if anyone asks, you didn't see me leave tonight. Emergency at home. My mother's in the hospital," he called out before disappearing into the night. It wasn't until her midnight rounds that Maria found the small black USB drive on the floor near the elevators. She recognized it as Dr. Harrison's. He often fidgeted with identical drives during their brief conversations. By 2 a.m., curiosity had gotten the better of her. Maria plugged the drive into her security office computer, expecting agricultural research papers. Instead, she found hundreds of classified documents that made her question everything she thought she knew about her government. Project Blackwater, Project Nightfall, Operation Clean Slate, names that sounded like spy thrillers, not crop research. The first file she opened was a briefing document dated 2 weeks earlier. Classified, eyes only. Subject, Blackwater. Phase 3, Implementation Phase. 3 field trials exceeded projected outcomes. Airborne dispersal testing in rural Minnesota, Nevada, and Georgia showed 97% effectiveness in target population modification. Subjects exhibited desired behavioral changes within 72 hours with no awareness of external influence. Phase 4, Urban Implementation scheduled for December 2023. Maria's hands trembled as she realized Blackwater wasn't agricultural research. It was mind control testing on American citizens. The pesticide trials were behavior modification chemicals designed to make people compliant and obedient. Financial records showed millions funneled through shell companies for illegal human experimentation. A photograph showed Senator David Chen, chairman of the Senate Intelligence Committee, meeting privately with Dr. Harrison just last week. The final folder contained Operation Clean Slate, plans for nationwide deployment of behavior modification chemicals through major city water supplies. The goal was population compliance enhancement and reduction of civil unrest potential. They were planning to drug the American people into passive obedience. Maria systematically copied every file to her personal laptop, driven by instincts that warned her evidence this damning had a way of disappearing. As she finished, footsteps echoed in the hallway outside her office. 3 figures appeared on her security monitors, 2 men in dark suits and a woman in a long coat, all wearing earpieces and moving with military precision. They hadn't signed in and were using access cards Maria had never seen before. "Good evening," the lead man said as they entered her office. "I'm Agent Parker, Department of Homeland Security. We need to conduct a security audit of your systems." Maria recognized authority but sensed something wrong about these people. Their credentials looked official, but their behavior was too smooth, too prepared. "I wasn't notified of any audit," Maria replied steadily. "I'll need to call my supervisor to authorize access." "That won't be necessary," the woman said, wearing latex gloves. "This is classified. We just need to examine your computer logs from the past few hours." The request triggered alarm bells. Computer logs would show she'd accessed the USB drive. When she insisted on proper authorization, Agent Parker's smile disappeared. "Mrs. Santos, this is national security. We can do this cooperatively or under federal warrant." The second man positioned himself between Maria and the door. Cooperation wasn't really optional. "Of course," Maria said, returning to her desk. "I just need to pull up the right interface for the audit." Instead of accessing security logs, Maria triggered the building's emergency fire suppression system. Klaxons wailed, emergency lights strobed, and halon gas began dispensing from ceiling fixtures throughout the facility. "She's triggered a false alarm," the woman yelled into her earpiece. "This is now a containment situation." Maria grabbed her laptop and ran for the stairwell as the agents called for backup, discussing permanent solutions to their security problem. She had perhaps 10 minutes before the system shut down and emergency responders arrived. Climbing to the 7th floor, she could hear heavy footsteps below, more agents conducting a systematic search. Her radio crackled. Multiple units responding to Meridian research reported chemical leak. ETA 12 minutes. Maria reached the roof through an improperly secured access door just as emergency vehicles converged on the building below. Fire trucks, ambulances, and police cars created a chaotic light show while the pursuing agents blended with emergency responders. Using her cell phone, she called 911. "This is Maria Santos on the roof of Meridian Research. I've discovered evidence of illegal government experiments on American citizens, and federal agents are trying to kill me to cover it up." By sunrise, Maria's situation had evolved into a federal incident. Her recorded 911 call had been flagged for supervisory review due to allegations about government experiments. The fire department found no chemical leak, raising questions about the false alarm. Most importantly, journalists had arrived after monitoring emergency frequencies, drawn by reports of unusual activity at a government facility. "Miss Santos," called Detective Sarah Kim from Arlington Police, "we need you to come down. You're not under arrest, but we need to understand what happened." Maria spotted Agent Parker in the crowd below, speaking into his phone while watching the roof. "Detective, the man in the blue suit by the white van tried to kill me tonight. If you bring me down while he's here, I'll be dead within an hour." The detective secured additional units, but Maria knew law enforcement couldn't protect her from a conspiracy reaching the highest government levels. She needed to expose the files publicly before they could be discredited or destroyed. She called the Washington Post. "This is Maria Santos calling from the roof of a government building where federal agents just tried to kill me. I have evidence of illegal human experimentation and plans to drug the American population. If you can get a reporter here now, I'll give you the biggest story of the decade." Within 30 minutes, 3 news organizations had reporters on scene with camera crews. The story was too big and public to suppress quietly. The press conference that followed was unprecedented. Maria Santos, a night shift security guard, presented evidence of government crimes reaching the highest levels of power. The documents on this USB drive prove the United States government has been conducting illegal human experimentation on American citizens for over a decade, she announced, displaying files on a laptop screen visible to cameras. Project Blackwater tests behavior modification chemicals on rural communities, military personnel, and prisoners without consent. Operation Clean Slate plans to deploy these chemicals through city water supplies within 6 weeks. Questions flooded from reporters about involvement, duration, and government response. The documents show participation from Homeland Security, CDC elements, private contractors, and congressional oversight committees supposed to prevent exactly this abuse, Maria replied. Federal officials scrambled to respond, some claiming ignorance, while others insisted any research was legal and necessary. But the damage was done. The story went viral immediately, triggering the largest congressional investigation in decades. Dr. Harrison reached for comment, referred all questions to his attorney before disappearing entirely. Senator Chen was arrested on conspiracy and human rights violations. Operation Clean Slate was permanently canceled, and new oversight protocols were implemented to prevent similar secret programs. 6 months later, Maria had become one of America's most recognizable whistleblowers. Her congressional testimony had been watched by millions, inspiring new legislation protecting citizens from government experimentation. "Do you regret picking up that USB drive?" asked journalist Rebecca Martinez during a follow-up interview. "I regret that it was necessary," Maria replied. "I regret that our government had fallen so far that a security guard had to risk her life to protect constitutional rights, but I don't regret doing what was right." The shuttered Meridian facility was being converted into a memorial center for victims of illegal government experimentation, with Maria offered the director position, ensuring such abuses never happened again. 20 years ago, I was a data analyst who lost her job to downsizing. For 3 years, I was a security guard who wanted to be left alone. Now, I'm responsible for protecting rights of people I'll never meet, Maria reflected. Life puts you exactly where you need to be, even when you didn't know you were needed. 1 year later, Maria worked night shifts again, not as a security guard, but directing a federal oversight office monitoring government research for ethical violations. Her team worked around the clock, ensuring the abuses she'd uncovered could never happen again. "Sometimes I miss the simplicity of being invisible," she told her colleague, Agent Rodriguez. "But that was always an illusion. We're all responsible for protecting each other, whether we want that responsibility or not." Her computer chimed with an urgent message from a Nevada researcher who discovered suspicious activities at a facility supposedly conducting livestock studies. The message included files and a plea for investigation. Maria smiled as she reached for her phone to call her investigation team. The night watch continued, and there was work to be done. 5 years after Blackwater, Maria received recognition at a White House ceremony honoring courageous government employees. Maria Santos reminds us that heroism isn't always dramatic, the president said. Sometimes it's a security guard who picks up a USB drive and chooses to look inside. But for Maria, real recognition came in letters from citizens who learned how close they'd come to losing their freedom. One teacher from rural Minnesota wrote, "You saved our ability to think freely, to question authority, to remain human. Thank you for being brave when we didn't know we needed protection." Maria kept that letter with Dr. Harrison's original USB drive, reminders that ordinary people could still change the world when circumstances demanded courage.